The New Orleans Saints get fantastic news Monday morning about rookie left tackle Trevor Penning, what it means for the New Orleans Saints, and how quickly you should expect to see him out on the field. We got all that and a little bit of lagniappe for you on today's episode of Locked On Saints.
You are Locked On Saints, your daily New Orleans Saints podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is good, Who Dat Nation and Who Dat family? Welcome into another episode of Locked On Saints, your daily podcast covering your favorite team, the New Orleans Saints, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks so much, as always, making Locked On Saints your first listen of the day every day. Don't forget that we're free and available on all podcast apps and on YouTube as well. And I'm your host, Ross Jackson, at Ross Jackson Nola on Twitter, your New Orleans Saints expert credentialed member of the media, CrescentCitySports.com, USA Today's Saints Wire, Tuesdays on Locked On NFL, and here with you every single Monday through Friday on Locked On Saints. And today's episode of Locked On Saints is presented by Prize Picks. Prize Picks is daily fantasy made easy. All you have to do is select 2 to 5 players and whether or not they're going to score more or less than their Prize Picks projection each week. Go ahead and get some of those right, and all of a sudden you can win up to 10 times your entry. First-time players can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with the promo code Locked On. That's prizepicks.com, promo code Locked On. On today's episode, we're already starting to turn our attention to the Atlanta Falcons across the division. New Orleans Saints opening up their 2022 NFL season, hopefully in a fashion much better than the way that the LSU Tigers did in Atlanta on Sunday. But before we get to starting to look at the offensive side of the New Orleans Saints and what they need in order to win on Sunday, the Saints get some good news for that offensive line Monday morning. According to Ian Rappaport, NFL insider at NFL Network, the New Orleans Saints left tackle had some pretty unexpected good news Monday morning after undergoing his procedure rather than missing the entire 2022 NFL season, which I'll be honest, was never really anything that I anticipated. It looks like Trevor Penning could be ready to return as soon as early November. So the Saints would have to play basically the first 2 months of their schedule without Penning, but he could end up being a clutch piece toward the end of the season as they look to make their playoff push. That is great news for the New Orleans Saints and pretty much in line with what at least our expectations have been in terms of how that injury was going to impact his rookie season. Not necessarily in a situation to where you're going to be completely without him for the year, but you're going to be without him for most of it. Now remember, just because he might be medically ready to return come November, it doesn't mean that he's ready to hit the field come November, because basically at this point you would expect that to mean that he could be ready sometime around, I don't know, let's just say the early, maybe let's say second week of November, right? So by then you're basically getting him back in practice at that point. Then you have to effectively catch him up for all of the weeks that are going to be missed between now and then. So you have to kind of get him back up in terms of his development, in terms of his progress, before you feel comfortable getting him out on the field. Now, the Saints might find ways to mix him in early, might find ways to mix him in all throughout that November portion of the season. And then maybe by the time that you get to your early games in December, then perhaps you're in a position to where you're, comfortable starting him or something like that. If you have any issues with James Hurst, or if James Hurst has any injury issues or anything like that, then maybe you can rush Trevor Penning to be ready by the end of November to get out on the field, but no need to do that if he's healthy. And if you're just basically trying to work off of a timeline in which you're just trying to get him ready to be out on the field. So not a huge ask in terms of what the New Orleans Saints are going to be looking at here. So great news for the Saints and for Trevor Penning, who is sure to be at least, I would say, a couple weeks into his recovery, a key depth piece for you, and then maybe kind of morphing into your starter over time to close out the season. Great place for the New Orleans Saints to be. The next piece in all of that is, what does that mean for the team? Well, effectively, it means that you're in a very comfortable position in terms of what you're looking at for the kind of projection throughout the season at your maybe second, maybe third most important position. You've got James Hurst, who you're very happy with, and that he will, I like I mentioned before, I thought he was going to be the Saints starter week 1 as long as both players were healthy anyway. And so with that, you already know where you are early on in the season, and you know that you kind of get this reinforcement towards your playoff push, which is a really, really nice kind of benefit to have later on in the season. Now, the Saints could still go out there and look for another veteran depth piece. It looks like Jason Peters will quickly come off of the market if he hasn't already to the Dallas Cowboys. And so, there's still the Nate Solders out there. There's still the Eric Fishers of the world, and there will be other opportunities for the Saints to add some of those players. But as of right now, they're not necessarily in a position where they have to be in a rush. You've got Landon Young, who can play both sides. You've got Lewis Kidd, who is going to be able to back up at right tackle behind Ryan Ramczyk, at least early on in the season. Plus, after week 1, veteran contracts are no longer guaranteed. So you're going to see kind of a wave of veterans that end up getting signed by maybe the New Orleans Saints, but certainly across the NFL. And there's certainly the opportunity for a tackle to be a part of that because those contracts are non-guaranteed. That's where you're going to see maybe some of these bigger name veterans like Jason Pierre-Paul and Ndamukong Suh and several others that could still come off the market at that point. And the Saints could be in that number when it comes to offensive tackle. So at that point, you have your starter for the beginning of the season. You might be able to add somebody for sort of that key veteran depth that you might be looking for in the middle of the season. And then by season's end, you have your next guy, your first round draft pick that should be able to get back into the mix with you and your team. So not a bad spot for the New Orleans Saints here. And just to kind of add this one thing, that's what it means in terms of when you should expect to see Trevor Penning. That's what it means for what it means for the New Orleans Saints, but just kind of on a person, on a human being level, that's got to be relieving for Trevor Penning, who probably was kind of watching the last remaining opportunity for his rookie season just slip through his grasp. And now he has an opportunity to come back and be a difference maker potentially down the stretch at a really important time for the team that invested in him in the first round. So what great news for Trevor Penning as well. This doesn't just go the team route, this goes the player route as well. And it should certainly make an impact for Penning to have that type or have the potential for that type of impact his rookie year. Coming up next, Trevor Penning will be a key part of the offense later on in the season, but the New Orleans Saints are opening up their season this weekend. What do the New Orleans Saints need to do, and where do they need to win on the offensive side in order to beat the Atlanta Falcons? We got that coming up for you as we continue on with today's episode of Locked On Saints. But before we get to that, I'm going to tell you about our friends over at Prize Picks. Told you mention a little bit about them earlier on. The best way that I could think to describe Prize Picks for you is that it's daily fantasy made easy. It really is. You just go to the website, prizepicks.com, you sign up, and then you're ready to play. And when you're ready to play, you pick 2 to 5 players, and then you simply just choose whether or not you think they're going to score more or less than their Prize Picks projections. So look, let's do it live and in time right here. So if I go to Prize Picks right now, and then I go ahead and get all logged in, I'm able to take a look at basically different things throughout, let's say 6.5 strikeouts for Shohei Ohtani. I can pick above or below in terms of that. Derrick Henry, a half a touchdown. Will he get 1 touchdown or no touchdowns his opening week against the New York Giants? I think I'm going to take more on that. I'm going to take more for Shohei Ohtani's strikeouts as well. And then just for fun, we've also got passing yards for Patrick Mahomes, 250.5. So maybe you take above or below there. You get all 3 of those projections right, then you can win up to 10 times what it is that you put down. And you can pick up to 5 different players to really maximize that winnings as well. You can even kind of hedge it a little bit so you can kind of get 1 wrong, get 2 wrong, but still get a payout. It's a lower payout that way, but hey, risk versus reward, right? So go ahead and check them out. It's super easy. It was that simple for me just now. It'll be that simple for you as well. Download the Prize Picks app or go to prizepicks.com to sign up and start playing daily fantasy sports today. First time users are going to be getting a 100% instant deposit match of up to $100 with the promo code Locked On. So you put down $100, Prize Picks gives you $100, put down $50, Prize Picks gives you $50. That's simple. Don't forget to use that promo code Locked On so that you can sign up for that instant deposit match for up to $100. All right, family, continuing on with today's episode of Locked On Saints. The New Orleans Saints opening up their season against the Atlanta Falcons later on this week. Yes, I will be there up in the press box having a good time. And so I'm going to be live tweeting and bringing you all the information that you need to know throughout. But one of the big things I'm going to be looking for is, of course, looking at how the New Orleans Saints can win with their offensive game. We've seen the New Orleans Saints defense be the key difference maker game after game throughout last year's season. We've kind of watched that same type of defensive prowess begin to develop over the course of this practice and training camp session and everything as well. But focusing on the offense, New Orleans Saints need to win on the ground in order to win in Atlanta. And there's a couple different ways that they can do that. But the thing that I want to highlight is you're going to see, of course, a ton of kind of high expectations for the New Orleans Saints passing offense. And I don't think those things are unwarranted at all. Michael Thomas should be ready to go at the beginning of the season. They've added Jarvis Landry. They've added Chris Olave. Jameis Winston is back. He's targeting, running backs right and left. But the running backs are going to be the key. Alvin Kamara historically does not have his best games against the Atlanta Falcons. So you've got to be able to get him going. And sometimes you're using that short passing game as an extension of the run game. That is a way to win on the ground. You're just winning on the ground through the air in the short and intermediate areas. That's okay. So if you're doing that and you're also producing on the ground with Alvin Kamara, Mark Ingram, so on and so forth, even Dwayne Washington, who might be stepping into a larger role this year from what it sounds like, there's a real opportunity for this team to be able to kind of run away with this game. Let's face it, the Atlanta Falcons defense is not good. And I'm going to tell you where their biggest weakness is here in just a little bit. It's all kind of, it's all relevant. It's all relative to the run game, right? So for the Saints, you have an offensive line that's returning 4 of its 5 starters. Everyone's very comfortable with James Hurst, who already knows the system. So even your 5th starter, who isn't a guy that's a returning starter, quote unquote, is still a piece that you're familiar with and that knows the system is going to be able to help you produce in the run game, in the passing game, so on and so forth. So for the Saints, they're in a pretty good position when it comes to the offensive line and the protection that they should need in order to set up the run game. The big thing is going to be, can they get the run game actually going once the ball is in the hands of the back? And in order to do that, you're going to have to mix it up a little bit. You're going to have to, continuously shift between Alvin Kamara and Mark Ingram and do what it is the New Orleans Saints do very well, which is come out in a bunch of different personnel looks, utilize your tight ends and 12 personnel. That means 1 running back and 2 tight ends. You also have 2 wide receivers on the field there. And we kind of predicted what that might look like because that's a heavy run set. So you're probably going to see Adam Troutman and Nick Vanette on the field for the first 12 personnel snap. And then probably your best 2 blocking wide receivers, Traquan Smith, if he's healthy, could potentially be out there for that. But otherwise, Michael Thomas and Jarvis Landry are outstanding blockers for you. So the Saints have the personnel for the protection. You just need to be able to get the game going once you get the ball in the hands of the running backs. And so Alvin Kamara is going to have to be able to utilize that balance, that vision, all the things that make him special. Mark Ingram is going to have to utilize that, between the tackles, just sort of brutal running mentality and that tenacity that he has had his entire, 11 season career so far, going into his 12th season. He's got to be able to put all of that together as well. And then the Saints could probably benefit from having a third rushing attack or a third player to contribute to the rushing attack, just to continue to vary up the looks, whether that's Tony Jones Jr., whether that's Dwayne Washington, or maybe that's Kirk Merritt elevated from the practice squad for that game, assuming that Traquan Smith stays, healthy and is expected to be out there. We'll see what happens with him. There's a real opportunity there for the Saints to get a third player involved in the run game. And that type of variation, that type of additional set of looks where you can get Alvin Kamara and Mark Ingram out on the field at the same time in 22 personnel, when you can get Adam Prentice out there, again, another really good contributor to your run game, to the protection in your run game. Those are going to be massive. Those snaps, those 21 personnel snaps where you have 2 running backs and 1 tight end, those are going to be massive in terms of being able to contribute to the rushing game. So what are you looking for from this team? This team gets over 150 rushing yards as a team, they should win this game. It's that simple, right? Like, that should be a huge part. Now, they have to be able to continue to produce through the passing game and things like that. I'm not trying to diminish the importance of the passing game. I'm not trying to tell you that the passing game isn't going to be there. It should be there, and it very well can be there. But for the Saints to win this game, they're going to want to do it on the ground. And that's a great way for them to establish early tendencies that they can later break with their passing game later on in the season, which is a good place to be with all of that. I'll tell you one other kind of secret weapon for the New Orleans Saints in this game, and it has been the Atlanta Falcons' kryptonite, the thorn in their side for the past few years, and it's Taysom Hill. Aaron Freeman of Locked on Falcons and I are going to do a crossover episode on Thursday to help you get ready for this game. And one of the things I will continuously tease Aaron Freeman about is how just effective Taysom Hill is against the Atlanta Falcons. He's had the big 40-yard run down the sideline. He's thrown touchdowns against them. He's, pushed into the end zone, in the red zone, and in those sort of goal-to-go situations and everything. He has been outstanding against the Atlanta. He's caught touchdowns against the Atlanta Falcons. He does it all. And so he becomes this big X factor for you as well. And who knows, maybe he's somebody that you also mix into the backfield. Maybe he's the one that gives you that sort of third running back look, right? That third kind of personnel look out of the backfield. So there's a lot of opportunity there for him to be able to get off on the right foot, playing the position that many of us believe is kind of where he can be at his best. So a lot of good stuff on the way from Taysom Hill you should expect this weekend as well, assuming he's healthy and out on the field. We'll be out at practice later on today. We'll see who's present, who's not present, all of that. Now, of course, getting Michael Thomas back is going to be a huge part of what this New Orleans Saints offense needs all throughout the season, but specifically against the Atlanta Falcons, he could play a pretty integral role, especially considering where the Atlanta Falcons are at their weakest on the defensive side. Let's break down the Atlanta Falcons' biggest weakness as we continue on and wrap up today's episode of Locked On Saints. Let's get it, Who Dat Nation. Wrapping up today's episode of Locked On Saints. And don't forget to go and check out that Ultimate Pro Football Preview 2022. AFC is all wrapped up. The NFC is coming up later on this week, but we're answering all of the questions that you have going into this 2022 NFL season, division by division, with our local experts. Over 50 different experts giving you everything you need to know going into 2022. And of course, Lee Sterling giving you the insider look at all of the betting odds. Make sure you take home some Skrilla this NFL season as well. All right, so we're wrapping up today's episode of Locked On Saints with a look at where the Atlanta Falcons are their absolute weakest. And this is going to be weird to say because this has kind of been the only strength of the Atlanta Falcons defense for the past few years, and it's all of a sudden the second level. Now that Foye Oluokun is in the AFC South with the Jacksonville Jaguars. Deion Jones not expected to play in this game. Seems like he's going to be out. What do you have at the second level all of a sudden? The Atlanta Falcons are going to be very, very weak in the middle of their defense. And if you look at where the Saints have been most productive with Jameis Winston and his 161 passes, Luke Johnson over at NOLA.com doing a fantastic breakdown of where Jameis Winston or all of Jameis Winston's passes, he attacks over the middle quite a bit. And that's been really productive with the New Orleans Saints wide receivers. And that was with last year's group of wide receivers. This year's group of wide receivers includes Michael Thomas and Jarvis Landry, who are absolutely lethal over the middle in the short and intermediate area of the game. We've also seen over and over again, Chris Olave targeted in the middle of the field, or at least crossing the middle of the field, creating some confusion, using his long speed laterally to get open as he crosses the center plane. So for the Saints, yeah, they got to get it going in the run game, and certainly the Atlanta Falcons being weak at the second level will help them there. One of the reasons why Alvin Kamara hasn't been the most effective against the Atlanta Falcons is because of Deion Jones. It's because of the second level and their ability to beat him to the edge, or their ability to win at the line of scrimmage, their ability to create pressure through the A gaps, B gaps, all of that, right? Create the interior pressure for the second level, their ability to cover as well when it comes to Deion Jones. If those guys aren't on the field, one of them is not even on the team anymore. But if those guys aren't on the field for the Atlanta Falcons, then it should be an absolute heyday for the New Orleans Saints right in the middle of the field. And that also bolsters their running game because they're not going to beat Alvin Kamara to the edge. They're not going to beat the offensive line up the middle, right? With the interior pressure coming in from the second level. And then on top of that, you're not going to have the coverage ability of a Deion Jones to be so rangy that you could just leave him alone in the middle of the field and he takes away passing lanes and he takes away your opportunity to be able to hit these wide receivers over the middle, these tight ends over the middle. Now, Jameis Winston should be able to have basically whatever he wants over the middle of the field. And that's a great place for him to be, especially when you're trying to build confidence early on in the season, knowing that you're coming back home to New Orleans next weekend to take on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. It's a great place for the Atlanta Falcons to be at their absolute weakest going into this. And I think you can also make an argument that they're weak on the defensive line, which just further kind of, let's say, emphasizes the point that the New Orleans Saints need to win on the ground in order to win in this game, right? So Now you have a weak second level in a weak middle of the field for the Atlanta Falcons. You have a New Orleans Saints team that has bolstered its talent in the receiving core. You have a New Orleans Saints team that's better at quarterback than they were last year because you have a better version of the guy that was already getting better for you in 2021, right? Jameis Winston was already a better version of himself for the first 7 games of 2021. Now he looks like an even better version of that better version. So you've gotten better at quarterback. You're okay on the offensive line. I think that's where you have the most questions to answer. You're returning 4 or 5 starters, which cannot be understated. That's huge for this New Orleans Saints offense. But that 5th guy is one that you're comfortable with, but still probably the most important position because he plays left tackle. He's protecting the quarterback's blind side. And then you have, a group of tight ends that should be better. You've added Taysom Hill to that room. Adam Trautman looks like he's taken steps forward. Juwan Johnson is no longer a first-year tight end. He's now got more experience. And then, of course, your running back room stars one of the best running backs and the best all-around running back in the NFL without argument. And the Atlanta Falcons are weak where? In the middle of the field and in the trenches, really. So the front 7. That's a great setup for the New Orleans Saints, who are going to be looking to build a lot of confidence and establish their identity early against the Atlanta Falcons so that they can build on that identity with their new head coach, with their new quote-unquote quarterback, with their new quote-unquote offense all throughout this 2022 NFL season. So that's what the New Orleans Saints need to do on the offensive side in order to win, as well as where the Atlanta Falcons seem to be weakest to me. We're going to get more information on that on Thursday's episode from Aaron Freeman of Locked on Falcons for our crossover. But tomorrow, we're going to focus in on the New Orleans Saints defense, the defense that has been a top 5 defense over the course of the next few years, or over the course of the last few years, and one that can be a top 5 defense again for the next few years. What does that defense need to be able to neutralize from the Atlanta Falcons in order for this team to win? And where are the Atlanta Falcons weakest on offense? Well, it's a pretty important position for the Atlanta Falcons. We'll have that coming up for you tomorrow. I appreciate you, as always, for coming through for another episode of Locked on Saints and for making us your first listen of the day every day. Don't forget for your second listen to go and check out Locked on Fantasy Football, the podcast with Vinny Iyer that gives you over 20 years of fantasy football expertise to make sure that you are winning your fantasy football leagues. You can also check out Locked on Dynasty Football as well. I'll see y'all tomorrow. And as always, I appreciate you so much for making me a part of your day, part of your routine, for saying yes to me and the show. As always, if you see me, say hi. And if you need anything else around your New Orleans Saints in between these episodes, make sure you follow me on Twitter at Ross Jackson, NOLA. Hit me up. Let me know how the family's doing. Let me know how you're living. Let me know how your mom and them. And trust Who Dat Nation. I'll holla at you.